Hot 5 and 5. The 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 Hot 5 and 5.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Hot 5 and 5 Jazz Jones interview. My name is Chris Hercules, and I will be your host this evening. Today, I have a special guest. His name is DJ JABIG. JABIG is an international DJ, public speaker, philanthropist, and the first person to cycle across Canada from coast to coast in the winter on a fixed gear bicycle. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome DJ JABIG. JABIG, how you doing, man?
Hey, thanks to you. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
Good. So it's my first time meeting you. I want to start off by asking you, I'm going to keep it jazz specific. There's so many great things you've done in your life, but I'm going to keep it music specific and start off by saying, what got you interested in jazz and what was the first track or album that caught your ear?
Well, I got into jazz when I was young. It was actually it was in my teens, which was in the early 90s. And I used to go to a friend's house, and her mother used to listen to the band, to the fusion band, Foreplay. And actually the first time I heard Between the Sheets, the Isley Brothers song, is through it's the cover version of Foreplay, and I really loved it, and I loved the album, and I loved listening to it. And I wasn't listening to it. It just happened to play whenever I was at my friend's house, and then I got jazz. It's only like maybe years later, like maybe 10 years later, that I heard the original Isley Brothers, Between the Sheets. I said, oh, somebody made a remake of it, only to find out that it was the opposite. And then as I grew older and as I discovered more music, I really liked the fact that it was, I like jazz, not necessarily because of the music, but for the peace it brought me. I found that I listened to jazz more for relaxation than necessarily for music appreciation. And as I grew more knowledgeable of music, then I started appreciating. But I would say that, Foreplay, that album, I forgot actually which album it was, but it's an album with Between the Sheets. It's the one that started it for me.
Okay, nice. What other genres of music were you exposed to growing up that really inspired you? So
I grew up in Kenya, in Eastern Africa. So I was influenced by soukous, or Congolese music, and I was influenced obviously by American music, which was hip hop, and then early 90s music. I really started getting into music when house music was born, when it was the era of not born. It was probably like maybe it's in its early teens. It was when David Morales and CMC Music Factory were coming up. And I really like the fact that they added jazz elements to it, you know what I mean? And then from there, I guess that's how I ended up becoming a house music DJ.
Nice. What is your favorite subgenre of jazz, and why?
I would say it's what is dubbed acid jazz. Some people there is Incognito, which is acid jazz. There's the Brand New Heavies, that's acid jazz. But then there's also acid jazz can also be like almost like house music. I mean, like it's more jazz with a foot to the floor kick drum, which means it ends up sounding like house music, but for me it's jazz. And I'm talking about Chaz, Saint Germain, and like the stuff that came up in the early 90s again. And today it's I would call it jazz house, because I think acid jazz has become a very niche sound, and now they just call it house music with jazzy sounds. But I would say, acid jazz, the late 80s and the early 90s era, that's what does it for me.
Yeah, that's what does it for me too, man. I'm really happy to grow up in that time and be around that music.
I mean, I'm always envious of people who grew up in North America or in the United Kingdom, because they were there for me. You know, I consumed that music from a continent away, so it was so removed. I just used to read about it in, in magazine, or watch it on MTV, and and the MTV was usually, the programs you got were like maybe sometimes a few months late. So I'm really envious of you who got to experience it and dance to it, sneak into nightclubs, underage. You're so fortunate.
How long you been DJing and playing music?
I started playing music in high school, um, secondary school rather. I think here in Canada they call it middle school. I was 15, and it started at high school parties. I was the shy kid, so I was just sitting around one time, just looking at everyone dance at a party, and the hostess said, "Well, if you're just gonna sit around there, just change the music." And that was actually my first gig, and I realized that I loved, playing music and like influencing people thanks to my music. And then when I was at university, one day I told myself, this is what I want to do. And I stood up in the middle of my statistics class that was completely driving me crazy. And I decided, that's it, I'm dropping out, I'm becoming a DJ full time. My parents were not pleased, but 20 years later, they still tell me to go back to university, but I tell them that I'm doing well. And the worst has happened, which is the pandemic, and I'm still standing.
Yes, we're all still standing. That's a true blessing from God, man. So
Yes.
happy to be, living through this crazy, crazy time and these crazy experiences. When did you start collecting music? After, was it like, because you had that situation that took place at the school when you were just sitting around, and then after that, did you start buying music, or did you start buying music after the statistics class, or was it in the middle?
Yeah, so I used to collect mixtapes because I used to be into DJs, So my first, I think I got mixtapes before I got albums. I would get, I would sit by the radio and I would actually go buy blank cassettes, and then I'll sit by the radio and then I would make, pirate music, and then I really started buying CDs because I got into music when it was there was a transitions from cassettes to CDs. And then from there, I guess I was buying whatever was popular. I was getting, like TLC, Fugees, and then when I moved to South Africa in the late 90s, that's when I had a little bit of money, and because I was working, and then I started collecting vinyl. But the vinyl I collected was, the vinyl I played, so it was house music, and I started on the harder side of music, which was, the techno and, what was considered hard house. And with time, I came back more to the soulful sounds because, it spoke to my soul more.
Okay, nice. How did you what do you think is the future of jazz?
I think jazz is right where it is. It's music it's not mainstream music, but it's music that's always be on the fringe, and it's always going to be appreciated by like a minority. But the thing is that jazz is jazz. It's always going to be the reference for everything. Most influences. I know that even jazz is influenced from something, but from other genres. But jazz has influenced so much, music so much that it's not going to go away, and it's going to be the one that's thought. And I think that we're going to get into a time when, in the future, jazz is going to be as timeless as classical music, and I really think that in time it's going to be more of the reference than classical music itself. And I'm saying this as a classical music fan too.
So before I go, I got to just ask you, how did you enjoy being a headliner DJ at the Wayla Bar in 2019 for the Jazz House Sessions alongside DJ Ron Jon? What was one of your greatest memories from that? And that night, that it was really nice because they had the conceptualist Davidson Ellie and live vocalists and saxophonist Paul Knight. It was a really, really special night. And how did you enjoy that? And what was your take on that experience?
I mean, the night was great, but the actual highlight was it was that same weekend. It was when the Toronto Raptors won their NBA title. So already before I even started playing my first song, actually before anyone started doing anything, there was electricity in the air. Everyone, there was like euphoria. Everyone was going crazy. Everyone was going mad. So by the time we go to the dance floor and started jamming, it was total madness. And that night was, it was so amazing, and it was my first time playing like at a proper, headlining at like a deep house, like like underground house music party, and so many of my fans that I've met along the years showed up. So it was, first of all, for me, it was important to put the faces to the to the Instagram and Facebook profiles. And I remember we danced. And I was also, because in Toronto, I think we had a late permit, so it was really something to finish later than we do in Montreal. And I remember people dancing and then hang out with the people I'd met. But we had a good laugh. It was really a great weekend. And the fact that the Toronto Raptors had won was, like the icing on the cake. And it was quite a memorable night, And I was actually meant to be back in 2019 or 20, but with the situation, things got a little bit, pushed back. So I'm hoping that when things reopen, I'm going to be invited again, hopefully.
Yes, of course, man. I'm looking to hear you spin and do your thing as well, man. Ladies and gentlemen, for everyone that's watching, please tune in to the Jazz Jones Hot 5 and 5 on Sunday, June 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. DJ JABIG's mix will be premiered alongside DJ Ron Jon. Also, the JABIG interview will be posted on the Jazz Jones Facebook page on June the 11th. So once again, Sunday, June 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, the JABIG mix, DJ mix, will be on the Jazz Jones. It will be on the Hot 5 and 5 compilation alongside DJ Ron Jon. And the interview will be aired on the Facebook page on June 11th. Once again, DJ JABIG, I want to say thank you for taking your time to sit with us and tell us your thoughts on jazz music. Oh, before we go, I must ask you one last thing.
Yes.
How do people find you on Facebook? How do people find you on Instagram, on Twitter?
So basically, they may go on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and just type in JABIG, JABIG.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you for having me.
Hot 5 and 5. 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 Hot 5 and 5.